What's going on, guys? We are officially back in session after a brief hiatus. The interviews will be going back up on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we have also resumed our Sunday Scaries session. What you guys are having today is the first return of Sunday Scaries. In today's episode, we briefly talked about the official start of Ley Bitcoin in El Salvador and just kind of how that's rolling out. And then we also talked a little bit about potentially Ukraine maybe adopting Bitcoin as legal tender, considering that they have a bill in place that legitimizes Bitcoin as a currency instead of how they previously used to view it as a scam. In today's session, I'm joined by my co-host, Moist and Shawn, and then James of Pomp's Crypto Course was also in with us. So that's enough being said. Enjoy the episode, guys. Moist, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. Repping the Bitcoin hoodie. I'm going to try and wear this as much as possible.
I clearly have to get some Bitcoin merch.
Yeah, it's stack sats or get Bitcoin merch. I feel like in the long run, this is promoting to people. So like,
there's a balance.
Back. Yeah,
there's definitely a balance between the two. You know, I recently went to North Coast Music Festival last weekend up in Chicago, and I wore this on the first day. I cannot tell you how many people like would stop me and just like talk and ask like questions about Bitcoin. And like, I would joke around and be like, dude, I don't know anything, you know, I don't know anything. I'd say a little bit. They're like, oh, what else do you have? And I'm like, nothing. I like only have Bitcoin. They're like, you don't have like Ripple or Cardano? And I'm like, no, dude. And I would just stop the conversation there.
What's weird about that is like, with now that they have Dogecoin and all that other stuff on Robinhood, you know, it's so easily accessible. Nobody's investing. A lot of the younger people are bypassing Bitcoin and just going after the Dogecoins and the, you know, the altcoins and stuff. And you wouldn't see that before. And I warned a lot of my friends in spring about doing that. You know, and they thought they were just doing amazing because they got in Dogecoin at 25 cents or 30 cents, and it's never going back down. I said it's going back down. It's doing it soon. It's going to go all the way back down. So maybe they learned, you know, their lesson, because I told them to play. You know, and
Robinhood's a bad way to learn too, because you can't even move it. You don't own Bitcoin on Robinhood.
Right, you don't own anything on Robinhood, and I get it's hard to explain this. So I think whenever Robinhood really worried about that, they're just worried about that.
Yeah, I think when Robinhood launched their crypto stuff, like whenever they first put Dogecoin on, I think the first month that Dogecoin was on, it made up 70% of their crypto trading volume. It was a really, really a high number. It was concerning.
I had several friends that were buying it and thought they were going to become millionaires off it, and I know what they bought it at, and it's all the way down. They didn't sell it where they lost everything in it. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I mean,
I'm not gonna lie. I bought whenever it was cheap, and I think I'm one of the few people that actually managed to sell at the peak, because it dropped at like 71.4 cents, and I sold at like 71.1 cents.
Oh yeah, you got it way up there. So like, most of the people didn't realize when the Robinhood crew and the retail crew, they were just exit liquidity for a lot of the real early investors who made a nice good bit of money.
Yeah. This is one dude in one of my classes. I mentioned Bitcoin because someone asked a question about it. The teacher gave a shitty answer. And then like after the class, he's like, oh, so you're into cryptocurrency, bro? And I'm like, no, I'm just into Bitcoin. And then he started telling me, oh yeah, I bought such and such shit coin. And so I was just like, that's cool, man. You should sell that. And it was like, haven't continued that conversation.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. That's what I've been like struggling with, like trying to figure out what's the best way to approach that conversation in like real life, like face to face. You know, it's one thing to be like in a Twitter space and to like just start like yelling and stuff, because it's like you can't punch me in the mouth like virtually, but like in person, like things getting heated, like I might get knocked out. And I'm not trying to. So
it's like, how can we tell them how, not to sound rude, but like how stupid they are for getting duped into this without like hurting their feelings? I
feel like that's what Pomp's so good at. That's like kind of what I admire about what he does when he gets on there and talks about it. And Moist, you you're combative with your college professors, aren't you, man? I follow you on
A
Twitter.
little bit. I did. I put one onto the Bitcoin Standard. I don't know if he's read it yet, but I came up to him after class. I'm like, you need to read this book, because we spent the whole class talking about money, and he said some intelligent stuff. He's like, yeah, no matter what, the government is always gonna. He's holding up a dollar. He's like, they're always gonna devalue this and inflate it, like always, forever. And I'm like, good job, man. You're right about that. But
didn't you have an economics teacher that like completely disavowed the idea that money was printed for the stimulus checks?
Yeah, it was the same guy.
Oh shit.
He's like, oh, they're not.
I didn't know if it was the same professor.
Yeah, he was like, the Fed is not allowed to buy treasury bonds except on the secondary market. And I'm like, maybe they're not allowed to, but they sure as hell did.
It's crazy. It's brainwashed. I mean, literally the entire education system is like brainwashed in this mode of thinking that money should like devalue over time, where like, but like, what is money a representation of?
Your
time. And so the older you get, doesn't your time become more valuable because you become more knowledgeable? Therefore, shouldn't your money be worth more over time?
There was like, so the way that the economy used to work, or the way that people thought that it was going to work, which has completely changed how the working landscape is now. Because it used to be, go to this company, hopefully this company has a pension, work for this company for 25 years, because you're going to earn more money. Everything over time should become cheaper. It's therefore going to be deflationary, which is going to reward you for your time, and you're going to get more money, and you're going to build wealth. You're going to do all those things, and all that changed. And now we're in more of an economy that basically says if you work in the same spot for more than 2 years, you're underpaid. Like, it's basically a guarantee at this point. You will be underpaid if you work at the same place for 2 fucking years. So it went from, we're going to give you this pension, and we're going to give you raises over time that are going to help build your wealth and help you save money. Fuck all that. It went to extreme, forms of inflation. You're going to lose money every year. New people that come in, we're going to pay them more than we pay you. It's just completely changed the dynamic. And you still have people that are like, I want to work for this company for 10, 15, 20 years. One, because it's easy. Like, I don't want to have to learn a new skill. I don't want to have to go learn a new company, start at the bottom of the totem pole again. I don't want to have to go through all that. But the majority of people that are changing their careers actively, it's because they recognize that security is no longer there for them.
You gotta be willing to like innovate and adapt and like show the market that like you're constantly trying to like learn and like improve yourself, which makes sense. Like, I don't know why people think like complacency at a company for X amount of years should garner them like huge wages. Like, I agree, like even with complacency, like you should still like see like a benefit to being like invested into something long term, but you don't complain when like Joe Schmo is like moving companies every 3, 4, 5 years. He's just trying to better himself and like learn more skills around, like, it's just networking at the end of the day.
Right.
Which I think a lot of Bitcoiners are good at, or I've come to recognize that like Bitcoiners are going to move towards like the path of least resistance and go towards whoever's going to help them facilitate their vision and their goals.
But the majority of people that are, Bitcoiners are very much free market idealists. And if you take free market ideals and you apply them to your career path, you're not going to work at the same company for 20 years. Like, because the free market's going to teach you, acquire a new skill, put that new skill up for auction, and go to the highest bid. Like, that's what a free market's going to tell you what to do.
Right.
Yeah. Be just as free with your labor as they are with like as corporations are hiring people and stuff.
Right. Well, we'll see how this video ages, because I was thinking about that the other day. So to our listeners, we've been on a long hiatus, so I apologize for that. But the three of us have been fairly busy. Shawn recently started a freelance gig at CoinDesk. He's been focused on that. Moise's been back in school. And I recently started Bitcoin Inc., working on the Bitcoin conference and stuff. But in relation to what we're talking about, staying at a company and like moving around, like, I don't know if I'm going to want to leave Bitcoin Inc. I don't know what else is going to come about. Like I literally get to go like work on and plan like the best conference in existence of man. I don't know how I'm going to top that.
Yeah, I mean, how could it get more Bitcoin than working for Bitcoin Inc? Like,
dude, I literally get to wake up and like go talk about Bitcoin. That is literally like my entire job. And then like make sure like all these Bitcoin companies like have what they need and what they want at the Bitcoin conference.
that's exciting, man.
Yeah,
I'm really glad for you. That sounds like the best way to wake up.
It is fantastic.
Sounds right up your alley too. Like,
Oh, 100%. All right, so let's jump into some like topics for today. Some things I really want to talk about. Actually, the two main things I want to talk about, and then like Moist and Shawn, if you guys want to throw some other stuff into, by all means, please. The biggest thing, obviously, El Salvador, and their purchase of a lot of Bitcoin, and the implementation finally of Bitcoin as legal tender, and then the next up and coming country. I don't know if you guys have seen a whole lot on Ukraine, but that's some kind of fairly recent news that dropped. So we'll start with El Salvador here. But we can start with talking about price because that's what everybody's always fucking interested in. When you guys think.
Where is it at the moment?
Let me take a look here.
I don't check price, bro.
I don't either, man. People like
it was 45 this morning, 45 something this morning. It's 45,597 right now.
See, that's still great. You know, people are like, oh, it's down from like what did it peak at? 52?
It's the same shit, man. Okay. Assets are assets across the board. Bitcoin isn't any different. Bitcoin's the king of all assets. I'll give that. But like that 50K mark, psychological barrier, massive psychological barrier. The moment you fall below that, everyone's gonna flip the fuck out. Mm-hmm. And El Salvador was people doing the one thing you're not supposed to do with any asset class, which is set dates, set expectations around specific events. And a lot of people expected really good price action whenever El Salvador, deploys their brand new legal tender in Bitcoin, when in reality, you have a bunch of people that probably have never used it, never cared to, don't quite understand it that well, that are given Bitcoin. They're going to immediately transact. That's going to cause selling pressure on the asset itself. That selling pressure led to the fear of people having price drops. That fear wound up leading to a lot of deleveraging because people were leveraged out the ass like they always fucking are on Bitcoin. And whenever an over-leveraged asset sees a little bit of fear and price pressure, it fucking tanks. Like, that's just what happens. That's what assets do. And I don't understand why people continuously set dates like fucking Elon Musk showing up on goddamn Saturday Night Live or
right. I mean, these are massive buy the rumor, like, just a buy the rumor, sell the news, and that's a massive sell the news event.
Mm-hmm.
Like
exactly.
For sure.
The smart traders are selling right there in those days for sure.
Well, and Shawn and I were talking about that like previously before we got on this. Like, I think to like the initiated, like to me, this was pretty obvious. I was like, price is gonna like skyrocket the day before, night before, leading up to this, and then like somewhere. I don't know when exactly it happened. I think it was like midday, but like I was like somewhere in the day, like things are just gonna like fall off a cliff, and it happens every time. Like James, like you said, like buy the rumor, sell the news. But that kind of volatility has definitely been decreasing as the years have like gone on and on and on. And I don't really think like a massive. I don't even consider it like a massive swing. You said the high was like what 50? You said 56.
It might have been 50. It's as far as the total high that it's went. I think it actually went into
way higher. Yeah, no, yeah, we've been way higher.
This local high,
lately it was just
like
at 52. I think like that. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, even more to my point, like a local high of 52,000 down to 45, like that's really not a bad swing at all.
Well, they're also basing that off of 2% stock, 2%, 3% stock market moves, and those are massive moves in the stock market because they have so much liquidity. There's not as much liquidity in Bitcoin or in the
Dude,
crypto market.
I remember Bitcoin having 30-40% swings
Right.
back in the day.
Before my time.
Yeah. So like this is like, what are you guys complaining about? But
Yeah.
James, like great, like always great advice. Like if you're trading, which I'd never recommend, I don't ever recommend trading, but buy the rumor, sell the news. If you're buying and hodling, like most of us and myself included, like don't get me wrong, like I bought $30 worth of Bitcoin for Ukraine on what was that? Tuesday. Just like, I mean, just like to be a part of the community and stuff. But like knowing me, like I'm like, okay, I know the price is gonna tank. Here's $30. I'm gonna wait for price to tank. Had a very nice buy-in at 46. You know, it's still a little bit lower, but like I was very happy at that purchase. And long term, because Bitcoin incentivizes like low time preference thinking, long-term thinking, like none of this shit's gonna fucking matter.
No. It's reinforced to me why I don't trade, because like I went ahead and bought my $30 on September 6th because I'm like, I mean, I don't know much about markets. I was like, oh, maybe it will pump because everybody's going to buy at the same time, and it sure as hell didn't. So I'm glad I just buy and hold, don't even try and time shit, because I would get wrecked every time.
Oh, right. So let's travel back in time here a little bit. So this article here is just kind of like diving in on just like why this is such a big deal in El Salvador for Bitcoin becoming legal tender. This was written on August 17th. So a little bit before the market had tanked. We've just been, I guess, from what I remember, coming out of a crab walk and kind of starting to like creep towards the 50s, which like Shawn said, huge psychological number for us for what seems, I guess, the past 6 months.
Yep, that's just how people are. It's always going to be a psychological barrier against that 50K. After 50K, 52, and then it's I think like 53.5, and then 55.
It's crazy. So, in this article, I mean, really, like all they're talking about is just kind of assuming how the rollout of Bitcoin is going to go. So, see here, Namcos wrote like launching in El Salvador as their first non-U.S. market was a strategic move, Mahler said in reference to Jack Mahler's and Strike. No other fintech company can launch and operate in a market like this. This is only possible because Strike is built on Bitcoin, the world's first open monetary network. Our success in El Salvador is replicable to billions of people that don't have access to developed financial services. So for those of you out of the loop, this is a big deal because I think it's 40% of El Salvador's GDP is made up in remittance payments.
Yeah, I think it's about that.
Okay, don't quote me on that. Someone can look that up.
I think the number I saw was they're gonna save 400 million a year in fiat.
Yeah, and from like Western Union fees alone, like that's. I mean, that's gonna put a dent in Western Union's. Like, I mean, obviously they're used all around the world, but I mean, if you have a country like El Salvador have a bunch of success with this, and then like the people there really start to understand like how to use, transact, both at a personal level and a business level in El Salvador, like that's going to be the model going forward for various countries, which will be interesting to see, especially with the Ukraine news that we'll get to here in a little bit. But obviously, law took effect September 7th, officially making Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador. Despite allowing its citizens to live under a Bitcoin standard, the regulation can bring about many benefits, both nationally and abroad. The Bank of America said cross-border remittance inflows, which account for a substantial, okay, I was wrong here. So great. I'm glad it's in the article. I think that number was Tonga's. I think that's 40%. I think that's what Lord 52 is. That numbers he's been throwing around on Spaces quite a bit. So even still though, so anyway, so remittance inflows account for a substantial 24%. So that's still fucking a lot of El Salvador's GDP could benefit from utilizing Bitcoin. The peer-to-peer electronic cash could potentially reduce transaction costs compared to traditional remittance channels. The Bank of America said the recipients could receive more significant portion of inflows, increasing their disposable income and reducing the proportion of remittances lost to financial intermediaries. So in regular words, less room for banks to fuck up and have your money lost, and rather the like more money go to the people that fucking need it because it's their money.
No more middleman.
Yeah, exactly. So huge things. We got the other thing that we're adding into with the September 7th is a regulatory framework for Bitcoin. El Salvador gets uniquely positioned to attract Bitcoin companies from around the world. Strike is the best and biggest example of this thus far. So I'm curious to see who else starts to go down there. These such things, the small steps in that direction, are already turning Wyoming and Miami into Bitcoin hubs. I'm curious as to why Texas wasn't thrown in there. Considering they're kind of the king of mining. But so complete Bitcoin clarity will be a distinctive edge for El Salvador miners, especially might find the Central American country a compelling place to set up business because El Salvador is also home to abundant, cheap, clean energy. The country's volcanoes give Bitcoin miners a unique opportunity, and Bukele has already invited them to come take advantage of that because volcano mining is fucking tight.
Volcano mining is cool as shit. So what's Bukele doing? Is he incentivizing anyone to utilize volcano mining?
I believe, let's see here. So I believe that there is a couple of incentives. I should know more about this so you can guys to see that I'm fucking lacking. Forgive me. President of El Salvador, NAYIB Bukele, has invited Bitcoin miners to take advantage of the new facilities and to set up a state-owned geothermal electric company specifically for the industry. Our engineers just informed me that they dug a new well that will provide approximately 90 megawatts of 100% clean, zero emissions geothermal energy from our volcanoes. The idea to use El Salvador volcanoes as a power source for Bitcoin mining apparently arose in a Twitter Spaces chat room hosted by Coinmetrics co-founder Nick Carter. The chat room had held conversations around Bitcoin mining and how the largest cryptocurrency has a high presentation in developing countries, as Carter said in an interview.
Do we know?
As far as incentives, I'm not sure specifically. So if somebody knows, please comment.
I think it seems like that he's just saying like, hey, we have volcanoes, come mine.
Yeah.
So does everybody trust that Bukele?
I'm skeptical. I think we should be with any politician. You should
100% be skeptical.
I'm worried about people having their Bitcoin on that government wallet.
Right. They had a journalist down there in El Salvador. He didn't have a lot of followers, but he made a lot of good points. I've been trying to look for the tweets, but I can't find them. But that was one of his tweets, and his point was that wallet being controlled by the government and the ATM machines and some of the fees and stuff. And he made some great points. And he wasn't really hostile against Bitcoin. He admitted to not knowing much about it and wanting to learn more.
Yeah, because I mean, let's say, I mean, God forbid, I hope nothing terrible happens to Bukele, doesn't pull something out of his butt, but like if something terrible happened with Bitcoin down there, like this experiment went wrong, that would be bad FUD for the rest of the world, and that would really slow adoption. I would hate to see something like that. Not to mention the people of El Salvador be getting robbed.
So they're doing something in Panama too, as far as Bitcoin or crypto goes. I think it's gonna, South America's pretty ripe.
Yeah, I agree.
Like this, they've been pretty ripe for quite a while. So I think it could move, really spread through South America like wildfire if it does.
I know Panama's been in talks for a minute. I think the biggest issue is that like the two politicians like promoting that law are like in a party that's equivalent to like the Libertarian Party here in the States. So like, it'd be like Gary Johnson coming out and saying, we're going to make Bitcoin legal. It's like, everyone's going to be like, Gary, what are you going to do, bro? But no, it's good. I mean, I regardless, like, even though like the likelihood of that like passing is like not super high, it gets the conversation started. And that's really like the most important thing right now. But let's see. I love looking at the Financial Times. They're very like anti-Bitcoin, and they wrote an article here kind of castrating the titled, the article's titled, El Salvador endures bumpy first week with Bitcoin as legal tender. Which I don't know what that's supposed to fucking mean, because like
Dude, if you type in Bukele on Google, I'm gonna just read the headlines. They're all negative. NAYIB Bukele is wrecking democracy in El Salvador. Bukele is turning El Salvador into a Bitcoin lab experiment.
Here, share your screen. I want to see the
El Salvador's Bitcoin president is beloved and dangerous. Let's see. Brave. Hold up. Oh, this.
I don't necessarily disagree with that last one. He is beloved and dangerous. Like that's fair.
Bukele, Bitcoin blunder, totalitarian troubles in El Salvador. Nothing good here.
Yeah. I mean, I think the IMF put out an article against him too. Like, I mean, you're gonna have like all this FUD come out when you're trying to fucking tell the banks to F off.
Right. Yeah, that definitely doesn't surprise me about getting the Google algorithm overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so let's go back to this Financial Times article and let's kind of go through it, because I'm curious to see what they are saying. Oh yeah, and before we start talking about it, I know Moist, you're talking about like we're talking about should we question some of the things Bukele is doing? I think yes, absolutely.
Wasn't he like a totalitarian dictator before this? Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know El Salvador history.
It's an interesting blend between democracy and dictatorship. I'm no political expert, but that's just how it comes off to me. I think it says a lot about the guy, considering he's trying to opt into Bitcoin, but also his situation is very unique, where like El Salvador previously is a dollarized country. They haven't had their own currency since the 90s, I believe the 90s. So really this change isn't all that drastic for them. It's not like they can just go to the bank and start like devaluing their currency, you know, like the only way they would be able to do it were to like pull a bunch of like extra loans out and then just start like dispersing the money kind of recklessly. So it's a little bit harder for them to like manipulate like inflationary type deals. But the flip side on that is that like if inflation's bad in the US, they're fucked.
Yeah.
So
they probably recognize that and don't.
Yeah.
He doesn't want his nation to become the weakest nation in the world.
Right.
Well, it's also not like the United States didn't wreck South America in the 40s and 50s. So I feel like
yeah. So but yeah, so anyway, so yeah, I think we should be very wary. I think it's great what he's doing. I think there should be some reservations about the government wallet, but the nice thing is that like you don't have to use the government wallet. There's just a big incentive right now that, hey, if you download the wallet and use it, you get $30 worth in free Bitcoin, which is kind of how this article starts off here by the Financial Times. So as the cryptocurrency Bitcoin became legal tender across El Salvador this week, a long queue formed at a cash machine on the edge of the capital. Those in line were mostly after one thing, US dollars. Okay, I don't know where the fuck they're assuming that from. But anyways, many waited to convert the $30 worth of free Bitcoin given to them by the Salvadorian government into hard currency, but the cash dispenser stopped working. An official admitted that just 3 people had been able to withdraw money from the machine that day. So, okay, real quick, like I have been fucking saying this for like weeks now. Like the biggest problem for El Salvador in relation to Bitcoin adoption is those goddamn motherfucking ATMs. Like there is no.
They shouldn't have put them or made a buy only.
Right. Well, there's like no like, because I mean Bitcoin's like free and open and unregulated. Like all these like Bitcoin ATMs, like it seems like they all have like a super greedy mentality, and their conversion rates from dollars to Bitcoin is fucking ridiculous. And like the people that need to use the ATMs the most are the ones that don't have like bank accounts or anything like that, you know? So because if they don't have a bank account, they can't like download like a wallet and start like buying Bitcoin on Strike because they don't have a big bank account to like get dollars into currency. Like they literally have physical, what they call efectivo, which is just Spanish for like cash. But so then that subjugates them to having to use these ATMs. And like, since there's no like standard really yet for these ATMs, which I think will kind of come out from this, I think these are just some growing pains. But since there's no standards, like there's some ATMs that like only allow withdrawals. There's other ATMs that only allow deposits. And then like some towns only have a withdrawal ATM. So you got to go to the other town to get to the deposit ATM. And like now, like that's taking up a lot of people's time. And so, yeah, it's total clusterfuck for sure.
I wonder how is competition not driven down the rates on these ATMs?
I think, so that's what I'm saying. I think it's short-term growing pains. I think it's an opportunity that not a lot of, I don't know if tech companies is the right company to use for Bitcoin ATM, but I think it's in particular something that is being overshadowed and overlooked. And I'm curious to see what kind of competitive standards come out of this market. Because right now, I think a lot of these ATMs are just trying to make money hand over fist.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fucked up.
At least in my town, the only Bitcoin ATMs, there's two of them. They're both in tobacco stores. So nice. I think they're targeting a certain niche there.
Yeah.
And they don't really care to rob those people of 10 to 12%.
Well, the thing is I think long term, like the Bitcoin ATMs aren't really going to be necessary.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
The biggest issue, the biggest benefit to them it kind of allows people to start getting banked, because that's what Bitcoin's trying to do at the end of the day, is provide everybody with a bank account, regardless of like wealth, financial status, housing, like anything. It's like, hey, here's an address, aka here's your bank account.
What do you guys think about, like, because I mean, I don't want to get too political, but they kick certain people off of certain social medias for having a certain opinion. All these tech companies are in collaboration. Could there be an attack on Bitcoin, and like you can't use these wallets, or these mobile wallets, or something like that? You can't use Strike. I mean, I don't think Strike would do anything like that. But like, do you guys see that happening with Bitcoin, like restricting access from like the simple, easy to use like software?
It would have to be like Bitcoin itself. No, I mean, it'd be impossible. But like from like
the on-ramps and stuff, yeah.
But like a layer 2, I mean, like you just look at like the game theory of it, like, yeah, like that could happen. But here's what's gonna happen elsewhere, and this is just how competition and capitalism just works in a nutshell. Is like, when one avenue closes, someone else elsewhere that has the means to do it better, cheaper, and easier is going to do it. And then therefore it's going to drive user base that way. If we're talking on like the grand scale of like an entire country, then that country's just fucking themselves. You know, it's just paving the way for like another country to be like, oh, hey, actually, like, look what fucking the US is doing. They're banning Bitcoin. Come here, bring all your money to us. We're pro money. You know, like it's just like, it's like, why would you, the Bitcoin's already won. Like, you hear maxis say that a lot, and it drives people crazy that aren't maxis. But like when you really like get into like the nitty-gritty details of it, like you would literally have to like plunge the world into like a chaos, nuclear holocaust. And like at that point, like there's way bigger problems to worry about besides Bitcoin.
So if enough governments adopt Bitcoin, and enough big governments, I know people that think, and these are smart people that know a lot about tech, and they like Bitcoin and a lot about crypto. They think if enough governments adopt Bitcoin, that they're going to be able to fork it and change it. Just like Bitcoin Cash, but where you know, if they could actually, if Bitcoin Cash was wrote by government that could change laws and put you in jail if you bought regular Bitcoin or something. You know?
I guess that's why it's important that we all run nodes.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. But in order to like really be like your own bank account, you have to run a node, which is part of like the education thing that like a lot of people are trying to get out there. And I think Elon Musk had a goof like a couple months ago where he was like, a node's too hard for anyone to run. And like I saw on Twitter, there's like a bunch of people, like from like old to moms to like younger teenagers, like just all kinds of spectrums being like, hey, Elon, I guess I'm too dumb to run a node. And they show like their Umbrel like plugged
But
in.
how much power do those nodes have right now if countries and governments started buying it and then they were able to
It's equal power.
have power because they control the natural resource.
So it doesn't matter.
The guns too.
You need to have, I think it's like a 95 or 96%, 97% consensus from the nodes and the miners to make any kind of big changes on the network. So literally for any one single government to buy up 97 or you like somehow magically all out of thin air create 97% of like the hashing power and the node power, like it's I mean,
could they fork it and then steal the hash power?
No, because
you have to have the
nodes,
97%.
Yeah, the nodes would reject that fork. The nodes would just be like, they would just view this fork and be
how
like,
did they do the Bitcoin Cash? How did they fork that when they forked Bitcoin
so
BCH?
That was an interesting fork because it really was like an up in the air kind of thing. Fortunately, so a lot of the miners wanted to fork because it was in like their favor, but the nodes, there was the node operators that were like, hey, whoa, what the fuck? This is not good for us. So you had some miners that were, they kind of saw the bigger picture and they stuck with Bitcoin. And then you had some miners and some node operators fork off into Bitcoin Cash. Ultimately, the chain that won out was Bitcoin because that was what majority consensus wanted. So
I think there's 15,000 nodes roughly.
Yeah.
So that one government would need to run 500,000 nodes to hit the 97% and then confirm the chain on all of them.
And get all the hashing power on top of that. Get like a 51% on the hashing power. So like the amount of energy and input required is just so like, it's like it's more worth it to put that money right now into the Bitcoin network. Like from like an economic standpoint, it makes more like it doesn't make sense to attack the network.
If you want to be wealthy, you might as well.
You might as well just join. Yeah.
Just quote Pomp. It requires trillionaire energy.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, so let's keep going through this shitty article because I hate Financial Times. They're always shitting on Bitcoin. So many wanted to convert the $30 worth of free Bitcoin given to them by the Salvadorian government into hard currency, but the cash dispenser stopped working. An official admitted that just 3 people had been able to withdraw the money from the machine all day. So obviously they need better and more Bitcoin ATM machines there. But like people didn't all of a sudden, like on September 7th, start accumulating Bitcoin. Like this has been known for a long time. So it's kind of stupid. Francisco Aliman, one of the lucky 3, was cashing in Bitcoin incentives gathered from various family members, although the combined 120 had dropped to 118 by the time he got the money because the volatile currency's price has fallen. Oh dear. Fell $2 and look, 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes like internally, like I really, the price volatility is kind of a bigger factor for imports and exports. But if the local economy is transacting purely off of Bitcoin, set Bitcoin rates, like it doesn't fucking matter what the price is in dollars.
Yeah.
So that's bad logic. Bad math, bad logic.
We just need a fully self-sustaining economy that doesn't need to trade and they can just operate on Bitcoin.
Right.
Are there any businesses denominating their prices in Satoshis?
Okay, so we're gonna jump a little bit here. I haven't read these articles yet, but the big 2 notes is, so we have McDonald's, fast food giant McDonald's now accepting Bitcoin in El Salvador. The fast food giant McDonald's began accepting Bitcoin payments in El Salvador on Tuesday. At the same time, the nation became the first to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. Although the law stipulates that businesses must accept Bitcoin, many were skeptical that large businesses would be able to integrate Bitcoin payment solutions by the time the law went into effect. And we got a photo right here showing an open node accepting a Bitcoin payment of what looks like
almost 10K sats.
Almost 10K sats. This is gonna, dude, I mark my words. This is gonna be another Laszlo moment in like 10 years.
Yeah.
So what exactly does McDonald's have to do on their end to be able to accept that Bitcoin is like at the corporate level?
That's a good question.
I bet they put some of it on their balance sheet, to be honest.
You would think so.
That's cool.
Maybe they say in this article. So to the surprise of many Bitcoiners, McDonald's in El Salvador already can and will accept Bitcoin payments. The company has managed to integrate OpenNode Lightning payments into its services, meaning anyone can buy food from McDonald's in El Salvador using the Lightning network by scanning a paper receipt with a QR code from their phone. And we have a tweet here from Aaron Van Werdum. Just walked into a McDonald's in San Salvador to see if I could pay for my breakfast with Bitcoin. To be honest, fully expecting to be told no, but lo and behold, they printed a ticket with the QR code that took me to a webpage with the Lightning invoice, and now I'm enjoying my desayuno, traditional. So desayuno being Spanish for breakfast. And that looks like your classic McDonald's plate right there. Although I see beans. I don't think
not in America.
I don't think you're getting beans in US McDonald's, that's for sure.
Yeah, the hash brown looks good.
They can use Bitcoin and beans.
So I guess that McDonald's is probably running a node somewhere back there.
Yeah, so it looks like they're running one through OpenNode, which is fucking sweet, which also goes to show that big businesses can and will fucking do it. Mm-hmm. So give it some time. We'll see how these balance sheets affect these companies.
Actually, I think it's different for McDonald's because I think their business model is like 95% of the franchises are owned individually, but McDonald's just owns the land and they
corporate McDonald's operates like a real estate company.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case internationally, but I know for sure that's the case here in the States.
This is really just a good way to put Bitcoin on your balance sheet without putting Bitcoin on your balance sheet.
Honestly.
All
right. So we're incredibly excited to work with McDonald's to help make adoption of the country's Bitcoin law and operational success. It's just a massive opportunity to demonstrate the power of the Lightning Network for everyday high volume, low value purchases at the most popular and successful fast food chain in the world. Clearly another significant milestone on the path to growing the Bitcoin economy. OpenNode's partnership with McDonald's delivered a payment solution in a timely manner. The Bitcoin native Chivo app, which is the government wallet used in El Salvador. So the Bitcoin native Chivo app downloads in El Salvador, however, are temporarily unavailable due to a surge in demand. Every El Salvadorian in the country has or will soon be able to use the $30 of Bitcoin given to them through Chivo. Many Bitcoiners are still wondering whether and to what extent the Bitcoin payment solutions will be used by these giant companies outside of El Salvador. It seems unlikely that these companies would continue to provide superior payment technology solutions only within El Salvador, while neglecting to offer services that allow for people to pay in Bitcoin back home in the US and other countries. It has yet to be verified whether other major American companies in El Salvador, such as Nike and Walmart, have also enabled Bitcoin payments. So,
how much do we know about the Chivo app? Was there any like KYC requirements for it?
I don't know, but I just looked. You can download it here in the States,
but you don't get the $30.
Yeah,
of free Bitcoin. Yeah,
I'm gonna download it and just see what's good.
Download it, mess with it, and then give me a lowdown here, because I want to also talk about. So not only McDonald's has integrated it, but Starbucks as well, which goes against such a, I always tell people, like, look, dude, quit your $5 coffees at Starbucks every day and throw that into Bitcoin. And now Starbucks like, hey,
we'll take
your Bitcoin. Anyway, so global coffee giant Starbucks now accepting Bitcoin in El Salvador. Starbucks expanded its payment services to include Bitcoin in El Salvador on Tuesday. At the same time, the country has become the first to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. So very similar headline to the McDonald's stuff. Curious to see if they're using OpenNode as well. So Starbucks expanded its payment services to include Bitcoin in El Salvador on Tuesday. At the same time, the country became the first to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. Although the law stipulates that businesses must accept Bitcoin, many were skeptical that large businesses would be able to integrate the Bitcoin payment solution by the time the law went into effect.
It's IBEX Mercado.
What's that?
That's just they didn't even know they used IBEX. It's further.
So although to the surprise of many skeptics, Starbucks in El Salvador already can and will accept Bitcoin payments. Videos on Twitter emerged of Bitcoin transactions in San Salvador on Tuesday.
This app is not working. It's well, it's in Spanish. I'm kind of able to figure it out, but I'm trying to register. I put in my phone number, but it's not sending me the text.
Okay.
Can you guys hear this video at all?
Yeah.
So to our listeners here who aren't watching, the cashier pulled up a QR code. The person who was purchasing their coffee scanned it, and the payment was done instantly. Arguably just as fast as using a debit or credit card, and definitely faster than cash. I think the one thing that slows things down right now, where people are like, oh, it takes me so much longer to like scan the QR code. It's like, well, like people just like aren't used to using it yet. I guarantee you by the time it's integrated into things like Apple Pay and Google Wallet and all of that, you're going to have services that give you a Bitcoin card. We're already having that with companies like Strike, BlockFi. I believe Bitcoin Magazine might be integrating something similar too. So
You're just saying with the QR codes.
Yeah, well, instead of the QR codes, it'll just be a card, so similar to what people are used to. And once like people have something they know and like, okay, like this works the same as like my dollars, then like people are going to be way more. You're opening up accessibility to another group of people that generally aren't willing to try or change to like different stuff. But if it operates the same as like your Visa or MasterCard does, like, I mean, people aren't really going to say no to that.
Right. I still think it's important to incorporate that QR code tech in it because
that is the future.
I
honestly,
think it's the future for sure. I don't.
Yeah, I'll tell you
too.
I tell you what, COVID,
especially the restaurant menus.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. It's like, so COVID, ironically, like I really think fast forwarded a lot of tech that was taking a while to like get in, from the QR codes that have been around since 2008, 2009, maybe longer than that, to like contactless, like in-store pickup, delivery, like it just streamlined just so many things. But COVID still sucks regardless.
So was it heartwarming for everyone to see pricing denominated in sats, or was that just me?
That was nice.
That was very nice to see that, honestly.
I didn't like seeing the $13 or whatever on the Starbucks.
Yeah, that was painful.
I was looking on the that front display. Yeah.
That was cool. So let's see what I'm curious to see who Starbucks partnered with here. So fast food giant, they're talking about McDonald's here. Looks like they say McDonald's partnered with OpenNode. So Starbucks, however, appears to have integrated Bitcoin payment solutions through a small Guatemalan startup called IBEX Mercado. I've heard of this company a couple of times. Have you guys?
Nope.
No? Okay. Many Bitcoiners are still wondering whether and to what extent Bitcoin payment solutions will be used by these giant companies outside of El Salvador. It seems unlikely that they would continue to provide superior payment technology solutions through only El Salvador while neglecting to offer services that allow for people to pay in Bitcoin back in the United States. Same ending as like the previous article. But yeah, I think like I think they're going to iron out a lot of the Bitcoin payment kinks down there. And then I wouldn't be surprised if you saw here in like 6 months, like at McDonald's and at Starbucks, the ability to pay in Bitcoin. Now, the only difference being it's law down there. They by law have to, if somebody presents Bitcoin, they have to accept Bitcoin as legal tender. Whereas here in the United States, they don't have to, because it's unfortunately not legal tender yet. So I don't know, considering these businesses operate in a retail sense corporately, if the franchises will want to opt in to something similar to this, but the smart ones will, I tell you that.
Maybe they'll just give their store owners, the option to do that if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Right.
How's it going to work? Because I guess you're going to get double tax because you're going to get the sales tax. And then when you spend your Bitcoin, that's a taxable event.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true. What was that's the other big problem, is like we need to get your Ted Cruz's, your Arca Rhodes, your Cynthia Lumens. Like there just needs to be more and more legislation like pushed through like quickly and correctly. None of this like stuff and shit into like the infrastructure bill type stuff. Like there needs to be like a strictly like Bitcoin bill.
Yeah.
That like differentiates like trading activity to like purchasing activity. I think for right now, there needs to be a distinct difference between the two.
Yeah, I agree.
So at what point do we start referring to these companies that are accepting Bitcoin as payments as companies that have Bitcoin on the balance sheet?
Balance sheet, right.
Like we refer to cash reserves.
Yeah.
I think we'll find out with the Q3 reports.
Yeah, Q3 is right around. Maybe it might be Q4 since it's so close to the end of Q3. But we'll find out soon for sure. I mean, honestly, like personally, like I would consider them like a Bitcoin company. Like if they're accepting it as payment, like technically it is on the balance sheet at some point. Unless they're
in the business model,
turning around and selling it fiat like immediately, which I really, really doubt.
Yeah.
I just, whoever's in charge of that, like, I just highly doubt, like, from a company corporate standpoint, that like they're not going to go to like, okay, who's the expert in like doing this?
And then they're not going to advise them to sell it,
right?
Because they have to have someone who's a Bitcoiner to sell.
Yeah, you would fucking hope, man. You would hope, because like some of these institutional banks, like, oh man.
I feel like there's going to be like a corporate layout for the majority of these companies that like at least somewhat know what they're doing.
Yeah.
To hold Bitcoin for an extended period of time just to avoid the tax penalties. Like they'll inherently become hodlers just so they can save on taxes.
And then once these big corporations that are also the lobbyists have Bitcoin on their balance sheet and have skin in the game, that could be where we see political change.
It's coming. It's slow, and then all of a sudden. So
yeah.
Other news here real quick, because I do want to get to Ukraine. But obviously, in order to like facilitate making Bitcoin legal tender, the government obviously needs to have some on their balance sheet. So most recent news as of 3 days ago on September 7th, El Salvador now owns 550 Bitcoin. President NAYIB Bukele bought the dip. So obviously it would look really bad if you're going to make it law and then not buy the dip, but he bought the dip. After buying 400 coins yesterday, President NAYIB Bukele announced that they bought a recent price dip and now own 550. Today, being September 7th, as Bitcoin was declared legal tender in El Salvador, the price declined from around 51,000 down to 43,000, and the president of the country announced that they have bought the dip, bringing their total amount in reserve from 400 to 550 Bitcoin. Joking, but also seriously, the president took a jab at the IMF, thanking them for the dip. The IMF is not in support of El Salvador adopting a Bitcoin standard, and it is novel and encouraging the president of the country stand his ground against the people who didn't care about them in the first place. The IMF goes into countries with the aim of centrally planning their economies, but Bukele is helping to take that centralized power away from them by using a decentralized currency. And you can see,
I didn't see this tweet, and that's hilarious. We saved $1 million in printed paper. That's fucking hilarious.
Dude, he's got a sense of humor, man. You got to give the guy some credit. Like he's got some fire tweets for sure. But yeah, to our listeners here. So his first tweet was buying the dip, winky face emoji, 150 new coins added, hashtag Bitcoin Day, hashtag BTC. And then he followed up that tweet with, it appears the discount is ending. with the tear emoji. Thanks for the dip. IMF news. We saved $1 million in printed paper. El Salvador now holds 550 Bitcoin. So yeah.
I wonder who holds those keys though.
The treasury, I'm sure. I'm sure it's not him personally.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be the treasury. I mean, the guy, even though it's like not necessarily a democracy, like he obviously cares about his country and obviously wants to see it improve. And he's shown this time and time again, not only in the way he speaks about how he wants the youth to be hopeful and like long and want for like whatever they want to do, whether that's like being a firefighter, policeman, an artist, some tech kid or whatever. Like they talk about like they want hope in their country. They don't want discouragement. He said that.
I did not realize that 70% of the population was unbanked in El Salvador.
Yeah.
I
Well,
knew that it was high. I did not know that it was that fucking high.
It's fucking high. Well, he's come out and said that. He was like, the banks, you failed my people.
Right.
Like he's literally like, you obviously can't do it. We got to go look elsewhere. And so Bitcoin was the solution for him. And he's only been in power, what, 3 years, 4 years? 3 years?
No idea.
But his big two things reforming right now, and he's been huge on this too, like very huge on this, is that like he doesn't want to combat poverty and gang violence by throwing people in jail, because that doesn't help the problem at all. He says the solution is giving people opportunity, and in order to give people opportunity, you need to help A, their education, and B, make sure they have good health. So I think one of the first things he did in office was revamp all the government hospitals by bringing in like new beds, equipment, all the kind of the basic necessities to bring the hospitals up to like current standards, which was awesome. And the other thing they're trying to focus on now, I believe, is increasing the education standard in El Salvador. Because I think, I might be wrong here, but I think the average education level in El Salvador is either like the 7th or the 8th grade, which is like extremely low.
Is there any like Bitcoin educational infrastructure in place to teach people how to use the wallets and all that stuff, the ATMs, all that?
There's a lot of small groups of people moving to do that. When Dan Sanchez, when we spoke with him, that's kind of what he was trying to do. I haven't spoke with him in like a couple of months, so I'm not sure if he's exactly still going down that route. But we had a cohort member, his name is Luis, I forget his last name. I spoke with him a couple of times, but him and like a group of guys are trying to implement some kind of education. I know Twitter Spaces has been great. Big group of guys, they have this weekly space called Latin American Sats, and it's literally just they took Tao's kind of model of doing the free Sat Saturdays, and they start teaching people how to use Moon Wallet, and they give out like free Sats over the Lightning Network to people in Twitter Spaces, specifically geared towards like Latin Americans, which is pretty cool. So education's like the biggest fucking problem in this entire space, honestly. There's so much like non-cohesive, like because you have like your Bitcoin maxis, which I'm in that camp and I firmly believe in what they're saying and what they're pushing for. And then you have people that are like really into Bitcoin, but are also like, I like trading into other stuff. So you get a little bit of different info from them. And then you have like the ETH heads, who are like, oh, if ETH is ultrasound money, it's better money than Bitcoin, even though their servers are hosted on Amazon Web Servers. And then you have like the Dogecoiners and like just all the other like mega shit coins and stuff. So like from a newcomer standpoint, like when you have so many different camps of people trying to educate you in what they think is the right way, that can pose to be a problem. But my argument to it all is that if Bitcoin is the only one that's legal tender in your country, then you should probably only listen to Bitcoin maximalists.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Was it popular in El Salvador? Was Bitcoin popular in El Salvador before they made it an actual currency? I mean, is that the reason why, or was it just because the president?
Outside of El Zante and like the small community there on the beach,
The Bitcoin beach, right?
yeah, that was transacting with it. Honestly, it was not big. I mean, for a lot of people, this came as a big surprise.
Right.
So,
like,
and
it's interesting to me, like the countries in like Nigeria, where it is popular with the people because they're an educated but unbanked population.
Mhm.
yeah, but here's the problem is that the corruption's so bad there and they're in
Right.
control of their own like money that the heads in charge of the state are never going to give up the control of money. Bukele is in a very unique position where he has never been in control of the flow of money since they've been only transacting like on the dollar. So overall, it just made a lot of sense from their standpoint when you look at things like 24% of their GDP is made up in remittance payments, 70% of them are unbanked. They want to create wealth and drive wealth into the economy and country. Like it just overall all makes sense.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think Nigeria's got a lot of those same situations. I wish they would. I just think Africa and South America are just so ripe for people to educate themselves on Bitcoin and kind of take power into their own hands.
Right. Well, no, and it's important as I mean, they're going to be a model for other countries that are like contemplating doing the switch. I think this article ties up pretty nicely, saying like, with the country and its citizens accumulating Bitcoin, El Salvador is heading towards a renaissance. The ability for both the country and citizens to save and grow wealth, create, bring in, and keep economic opportunity, grant their citizens property rights and more is going to transform the country from a third world to the first. This is an extremely exciting time to be in Bitcoin as we are seeing how it will work and prosper in the real world. No more speculating on how it would perform. Everyone in the world is witnessing the power of Bitcoin with their own two eyes. And then we have here a tweet from NAYIB Bukele, and it's in Spanish, so I'll do my best to translate. So with all innovation, the process of Bitcoin in El Salvador has a pretty big curve that needs to overcome. Everyone walking towards the future should long for a day that isn't a total mess. We should break the paradigms of the past. El Salvador has the right to advance to be the #1 in the world. So pretty inspiring tweet. But so yeah, so they're like I said, they're going to be a catalyst and kind of model for some of these other countries, which I think the next one's going to be Ukraine.
Yeah, that's dope. I need to look up Ukraine to see where it is on the map.
So James,
this teaches me geography.
It's Eastern Europe.
Right.
Like I think Eastern Europe's definitely a place too.
This will be interesting because one of my professors, my international macro professor, is from Ukraine. So I'm curious to see if she has any take on this.
Well, wasn't Ukraine where that like I don't know that I want to go and call it a conspiracy theory, but like Putin came out at that conference saying that he was going to separate from the petrodollar, and then suddenly there was like a bunch of miners sent to Ukraine. Isn't that where the whole story came from?
I'm not sure. That's news to me.
No, I that sounds familiar because he did go off the dollar, and Ukraine is right next to Russia, so that wouldn't seem too far fetched.
Yeah, it was like I don't remember who it was that was talking about it. I think it was like Luke in Twitter Spaces or something. So obviously, like very out there stuff. I'm not verifying it. I'm not saying that it's true by any means, but the thought was that with Putin's very clear intentions of separating himself from the dollar, and then a large amount of miners being sent to Ukraine. I think that there's a large amount of renewable energy in Ukraine. I really don't know.
I think you're correct. It's funny, like as all these countries start adopting Bitcoin, like all of us Bitcoiners are going to start like knowing like all the ins and outs of like their GDP, like economy, renewables, political structure.
So suddenly we're
never cared about international stuff until Bitcoin.
Nope.
Not one
bit.
bit.
Our Thanksgiving dinners, talking to our family about Ukrainian economics, and everyone's gonna be like, "Why are you?
Why? Yeah. Why? Why do you care?" But yeah, okay.
It's relevant, Mom.
Geography lesson for myself and probably everybody else here. So here's Ukraine. Here's Russia. So yeah, far Eastern Europe for sure. So let's dive into this article real quick, because I want to kind of speculate and think of where things are going along. There is no official English translation of the bill, but I believe there should be one out here in a couple of days. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But let's go through this article here. So
it's funny they did it September 8th, the day after El Salvador.
Yeah, right. Law. It's like, it's smart. It's smart. So, but it's another one to check off the list, and it's outside
the game theory in play.
It literally is. And it's outside of Latin America, which personally I think is huge. Granted, I want to see all of Latin America adopt it. But if we can like get like pockets throughout like each continent, like that's huge. Huge. So, all right, let's dive into this. So inside Ukraine's Bitcoin bill, the Ukrainian parliament passed a law that legalized and regulated Bitcoin in the country, providing official clarity on the asset, which was not previously clear. On September 8th, 2021, Ukrainian parliament passed a law that legalized and regulated Bitcoin in the country. The bill, drafted in 2020, passed with a total of 276 lawmakers supporting the law and only 6 against it. So that's fucking substantial. Like that's huge majority favor. The main purpose behind this bill seems to provide clarification on the asset and protect those who own Bitcoin, as it was not previously legal or illegal in the country. Though not illegal, Ukrainian law enforcement agencies treated Bitcoin and other virtual currencies as a scam, resulting in Bitcoin businesses getting raided, according to the Kiev Post. So previously, that's a big, huge deal, especially for companies like Bitcoin Inc., Bitcoin Magazine, and things like Strike, things like, Stacks, you name it. Whoever's trying to go over there and transact Bitcoin, they couldn't previously. But now they can, which is huge. So now that this bill is passed, courts can now properly protect individuals and businesses, since it provides tax clarity, and it officially allows Bitcoin businesses to operate within the country. It also sets some guidelines for how Ukraine may try and regulate Bitcoin more in the future. This bill gives the citizens permission to own and trade Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies on exchanges. The bill also gives clarity on wallets and what private keys are. So the parliament is expected to pass and amend their tax and civil codes before the end of the year to officially open the market for businesses and investors, according to a Ministry of Digital Transformation spokesman who spoke to the Kiev Post. It is important to note that even though Bitcoin is now legal in the Ukraine, that does not mean BTC is legal tender in the country. That would require a whole other bill for that to happen in the future. This is great news and definitely a step in the right direction towards the country eventually adopting a full-on Bitcoin standard similar to El Salvador. One important thing to note here is that for Bitcoin to fully thrive in a country, it is important not to stamp it with too many laws or regulations, which would end up stifling innovation. Bitcoin is currently very nascent and seems to be on its way to becoming the world reserve currency. It would be a shame to see countries not capitalize on the opportunity at hand because of overregulation.
I think obviously this is a great move for Ukraine. I'm looking at their it's called the hryvnia, their currency, and it currently, one of those equals about 3 cents in US dollars, and that's been going down since 2003, where it was 20 cents. So if they want to stay competitive in the marketplace, they're adopting a currency that's now going to appreciate against the dollar.
Yeah, for sure. Let's look. $1, it's 26. So yeah, but yeah, like James said, man, that's just the game theory going into effect. Like the countries that have like overinflation and like just have been historically corrupt, which Ukraine especially over the last 5 years. Just with the like Russians Crimea annexation, and then like Russia kind of coming into Ukraine and just kind of really taking things over.
They were kind of in the middle of a bunch of war, weren't they? Like geography wise,
yeah. Well, for historically for a very long time, like they have been. So and we all know
this will be good. Wealth that can't get taken by a raid.
Exactly.
Well, a lot of those Eastern European former Soviet bloc countries, kind of have the same makeup. So that's why I think it could kind of spread there as well. They have a high income class and a large income disparity. So
I think the biggest takeaway from all this is that Bitcoin companies can now operate in Ukraine. So this is an opportunity and I think there's a lot of like big tech people that come out of this part of the world particular. So for them, like huge opportunities here to drive innovation and wealth, because I mean, the two go hand in hand. So that's big. And then with that driving of innovation and wealth into the country, like other countries real quick are going to be like, holy fuck, like we don't want to miss out. Like we better take similar precautions in order not to get left behind. And so I think once that starts happening, and like countries get like accustomed and acclimated to transacting and interacting with Bitcoin, then we're going to start seeing bigger pushes for, hey, let's make Bitcoin legal tender. And when we're dealing with the world that's already globalized in an economy, like it's in everyone's best interest to shy away from the dollar and to go to something that can't be manipulated by any one individual entity.
See, I think the game theory plays out where the US will adopt if the US government cares about its people, which I think is debatable at this moment in time.
There's some good ones, but not a lot.
Yeah. And the thing is, it takes a lot to get anything done. It takes a majority in, the Senate, the House. But what we could see, and I think would be more likely, is individual states adopting it. But also, I mean, how would that work? Because all the states are on the dollar. Could a state be like, hey, we don't want to be a part of the US dollar anymore. Bitcoin is now our tender in this state.
I don't think they could do that, but they could start doing things with Bitcoin at the state level, just like states started defying federal law with, marijuana.
Yeah.
If there's no federal laws against and federal bans against Bitcoin, they would have to do something to ban it first. But I do know that right now, currently, the federal government is definitely trying to push, DeFi innovation out of the country. That's for sure. Now, I don't know if that means they'll accept more Bitcoin stuff, but
it'll be interesting to see.
I don't like what they're doing with innovation in the DeFi space, because innovation is innovation. And, I think some people make a good point with saying that Ethereum and some of these things are kind of like a test network for innovation for future things that could come to Bitcoin.
Yeah, ultimately everything at the end of the day is going to be built on Bitcoin. Like there's just, you cannot, like, it is literally impossible to recreate the narrative and the incentive to create it from the get-go. Like all these new currencies, like, yeah, they want to innovate, but they also have an incentive to be profitable and earn money, like,
and stack Bitcoin.
Yeah, like when Satoshi created Bitcoin, like there's no way he knew, like he didn't know, like obviously he created something in the hopes that it would work, but he had no idea if it was going to work or not. And there was countless projects prior to him,
right,
for decades and years.
A lot. It built off the failures of those projects, and like Ethereum is just like this whole new thing, like this innovation environment.
Well, Ethereum doesn't. It's in the hands of a select amount of people, and it doesn't know what it wants to be, and it's always changing, like its definitions to kind of absorb what Bitcoin's trying to say and do. Like Bitcoin says it's sound money, Ethereum says it's ultra sound money, and it's like, okay, well, let's really look at what does that mean, So. Yeah, no,
there's just no need for more than one blockchain. Like the Bitcoin blockchain, it's perfectly decentralized. Yeah. If we can put everything on there, that's the way to do it.
For sure. No, definitely. So yeah, it's going to definitely be a bottom up movement. I think for a while that I think the dollar and Bitcoin are going to be in conjunction with one another until one kind of just fades out of existence. That process could be a decade. That process could be a century. I don't know. I think it personally, being the maxi I am, I think it'd be closer to a decade, maybe even shorter. I hope shorter.
It won't be a century.
It's going to be so much of a transition in the United States. I mean, it's as far as the federal government goes, our power is the power behind the dollar is obviously our military. So,
Yeah.
Right. Well,
how are we gonna compensate for that?
The military is getting weaker.
This is definitely a topic for next week, because we're kind of dragging on here a little. But jot it down because I definitely want to talk about it. But our pulling out from Afghanistan, like we fucking need war to mitigate inflation badly, and now we don't have a war. So I don't know what this administration's goal is in terms of, I mean, not only are we out of Afghanistan, which don't get me wrong, I fucking hate war. I am, as much as it pained me to see the trillions of dollars wasted in a matter of days there and the countless amount of lives lost, both American, international, and Afghani lost, I fucking hate it all. But overall, I'm glad to be out. But from a fiat standpoint, and considering the fact that we still operate on a fiat standpoint, that's not very good. So, and then you add in COVID, you add in supply shortages. Like, I don't know where this stuff's going, but we can definitely talk about it next week.
Yeah, definitely. I saw a video circle around on Twitter yesterday of a fighter pilot and the vaccine mandates. He said him and like 30 other of like the top notch fighter pilots are all leaving the military. They're not doing it.
It's not good, man. It's a lot of even the lower. I mean, you need the top notch guys, but you also need the grunts.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of grunts that are like opting. They're just like, give me the discharge, not taking the vaccine. So
that weakens fiat, I suppose.
Yeah, I refuse. I'm in good health. I would rather get it. I'm pretty sure I've had it twice.
I had it 2-3 weeks ago, and I was the same time Joe Rogan had it, and I was fine.
Well, and people are like, oh, well, you're contributing to.
No, I didn't actually. I don't know. I just sort of hung around, drank some water, just laid down. I was sick for one day, and then like I for a few days after I was coughing up like mucus, but it was fine. I mean,
I don't know.
100%.
I'm just a big believer in freedom of choice. That's my thing. If you weren't pushing the vaccine on me so hard, like maybe I would get it, but it's not. I hate that everyone calls it a vaccine. It's not a vaccine. Like a vaccine in a traditional sense is dead RNA cells of the virus that are injected in order to form the antibodies. This uses a spike protein that codes your RNA to create said antibodies. So it's more of a gene therapy than it is a virus or a vaccine. But we're getting off tangent here. Yeah. So, guys, I appreciate that. Always appreciate you guys hopping on. James, it was good to see you.
Good to see you, James.
The podcast as a whole, we are getting back on track. We have gotten severely off track over the course of the last 2 months, largely my fault, so I apologize for that. But we have a ton of content sitting in the locker getting ready to come out, and we will be resuming these Sunday scaries here, effective immediately every weekend. Me and the COB crew are working out a schedule to get stuff out on time for you guys, so expect this video here that we recorded on Saturday to be up tomorrow, Sunday, September 12th, and on time there forward. We've had some good stuff in the locker, from HUD 8 mining to some big personalities out on Twitter, so be on the lookout for those videos as well. As always, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you want to be a part of the Sunday Scary session and you're not in Pomp's crypto course, go follow me on Twitter at Alan Hoddle. Go follow the podcast at COB Podcast, and you will see the link to the Zoom tweeted out the night before. Go also follow my co-hosts. You can follow Shawn at fall_of_fiat, and you can go follow my boy Moist. You just changed your Twitter handle. What's the
it's at Moist BTC.
Oh, it is still at Moist BTC. Yeah. Okay.
I just changed the profile picture.
Gotcha. So go give those guys a follow. James is working on something very cool for helping out strays. If you want to kind of just give a quick summary on what you and Nick Fonseca are trying to do? And then if people want to kind of help contribute, where can they do that?
Yeah, so we're starting off small with just a newsletter, and we're going to try and build a community of animal lovers and people that want to try to help get animals out of shelters. That newsletter is on Substack right now. It's called Pit Bull Partners, and we're going to have our second article out probably by the end of next week. And once we get these articles going, I'm going to start working on some applications, some Bitcoin applications specifically, where we will be paying people back in sats to walk dogs. I'll let you know more about how that goes when I start developing that app, get a UI going and stuff.
Love it. Love
That
it.
sounds awesome. I'll walk a dog for sats.
I'll walk a dog for sats.
I'm sure a lot of people will.
So,
as will I.
All right, guys. Appreciate you coming on. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see y'all next weekend.
Cool.
Yes, sir.